Energy producers and consumers are expected to play by the grid's rules. Dynamic tariffs should be the game changer, but what are they? Will they be a magic cure or more likely a beast of complexity? What do you think? Hello and thank you for being with us in this HAKOM webinar. I'm Stefan Komornyik, co-founder and managing partner at HAKOM Time series. As always, our live webinars are recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. You will receive a direct link along with a follow-up email a few days later. Check out our YouTube channel for more in-depth information on Time series. For updates, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Last time we had a talk on how to create an excellent energy data hub. Introducing dynamic tariffs will certainly only work if you can rely on a vast amount of energy data, among other things. As we all know, the energy transition presents a major challenge for all players in the energy sector. The volatility of renewable energy production makes balancing grids almost a rocket science. A central question is, how can we encourage prosumers to act in a grid-friendly manner so that they provide and consume energy depending on the current state of the grid? Dynamic tariffs should be the magic cure. The idea is to make it highly attractive to consume energy when no one else needs it and provide it when everybody does. They can be structured in different ways, either as an incentive element of energy costs or as a component of the grid expenses, where they will serve as a key balancing instrument for distribution system operators starting 2026 under our energy legislation. But are they truly a magic cure? Or are they simply a beast of complexity? Let's take a closer look and ask our experts. Kjetil Storset is head of Power Grid New Markets at Volue. Volue is a leading provider of software and services to the European energy and grid industry. With more than 1,100 customers, Volue uses advanced technology solutions to facilitate the energy transition and digitalization of critical infrastructure. Headquartered in Norway, Volue employs over 700 people across Europe. He works with DSOs across Europe to solve real operational challenges. Kjetil will give us insights into the Norwegian market, where dynamic tariffs have been introduced already 20 years ago. He will talk about operational challenges and share his insights into principal design problems that typically arise while providing dynamic pricing to power prosumers. He will also discuss lessons learned and offer solutions. Second, we have Hirth on the panel. Leon is founder and director of Neue, a boutique energy economics consulting firm, and teaches at the Hirth School in Berlin. He's an energy economist and expert in renewables, market design, and energy policy. Leon spent 5 years at the Swedish utility Vattenfall, where he advised clients in both the private and the public sectors. This includes the German Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy, the European Commission, and many more. Leon will explain how he currently interprets the situation and potential of dynamic pricing. His primary focus is on the German market, where his consulting firm has conducted relevant studies. However, his findings are also relevant to other European energy markets, which are now beginning to employ smart meter data for grid-friendly behavior. And finally, I hope for a lively discussion. So, let's meet the panelists and jump right in. Hey again, and welcome to our next HAKOM webinar here in Vienna. Hi Leon in Germany and Kjetil in Norway. Thank you so much for being here. And of course, thank you all for joining us. Before we get started, I want to remind you, please ask questions like always during the webinar. We will have a Q&A session at the end. And as always as well, we will try to answer everything you drop in. So I'd like to start with you, Kjetil. Norway introduced dynamic tariffs already 20 years ago. We are excited to learn about your experiences. How did that work? And what are the lessons learned?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction and the opportunity to share some learnings from Norway. Hopefully they will at least be input for what's going to happen all over Europe. And if you take the first slide, it's the reason why I think it's relevant is that we have this as-is status of being the country with the highest penetration in the world with electric vehicle penetration. And also on the heat pump side, we have the highest penetration of heat pumps in Europe. So you look at this figure on the right-hand side, you can see that there is a major difference as of today with this status. So that's why I think we have at least more experience in how to handle the scaling part of this based on a system point of view. And it is, if you take the next slide, we will see that if it's the view that Norway have a grid built for handling whatever on the electricity side, you should be aware of the fact that Norway have also a grid that is by design balanced from the local level. It's like you have in your home a main fuse. This main fuse is in every home. If you're adding those contracts with the DSO, you will see that the grid is by design not able to take more than probably 60% of these total amount of fuse capacity in your home. So even in Norway, it's like if you start using power at the same time in all homes in the neighborhood, the grid will not be able to take it. But we have been lucky, even if we introduce these energy prices that has been hourly based with a L spot price directly to the consumer for decades. People actually they are not aligning fully with this. So as people don't follow these incentives by default, it's not like scaling in the way it can do if everyone does so. And the main reason why it's not like that is that it's still mostly manually operation of when you charge your EV, when your heat pump starts, and it's not like optimized as of today. So as soon as you start at scale implementing smart charging of EVs, they will all aim for the same hour, and that's gonna give a congestion in the grid everywhere actually. So if you take the next slide, what happens then is that your EV stop charging. That's from my EV up to the left. The EV stop charging because the network voltage is too low. And that's a problem for those who are charging the EV. It's of course an option to just postpone, try it later. That's what we do basically. But the more important problem is that on the other picture is that the coffee machine stopped working. And then you have a problem because you can't postpone the coffee, right? But this is in general problems for the consumers, while this happens before you get below the delivery agreement from the DSO, the system operator. So it's the consumers having the problems. So the consumers should aim for those hours where the grid have the needed capacity. So if you take the next one, you can see how it looks on this app from a supplier providing smart services. It's called VIB. Volue is supporting this with forecast on the spot price, and we also support this with what's gonna be the consequences for the grid. What we see is that you are, as a consumer, you are providing started out with one 24-hour view on when you should charge your EV. We just saw that it should be a week-long forecast to choose the right day and the right time slot on the day. So now we are planning your EV charging based on which day to charge, and that's why you see all these green and yellow and red when to charge. But this is not like all you're paying because you need to add the network fee. So if you take next one, you can see that this is including everything as a view from the consumer side. So you should charge during the night actually. While doing that, you will avoid, for instance, tomorrow when you can see it's 93 and 81 during daytime. If you have a rooftop solar feeding in your area tomorrow, there will be very little demand to take up these. And then you will run into over voltage in the local area. So that's why we have seen the need for introducing an incentive in areas with high feed-in. We need to have incentives for rooftop solar neighborhood incentive, basically, where you can get paid for charging your EV tomorrow because you shall avoid grid constraints locally. So if you take the next one, you can see how that works. Suddenly the price tomorrow will be the cheapest during daytime in those areas. But now you have seen, and this is adding to at least 120 euro per year in compensation from the grid operator. The important thing in this is that you started out with the basic view that you should just know when the price is low and it's high. Then you're adding the grid network cost. Already that is too complex for people to understand. Adding this dynamic day-ahead tariff on top, it's way too complex for every household to be aware of this. So that's why we see that if you should have grid-friendly charging, you should absolutely be aware that this needs to be operated by professionals. And this is why you have flexibility service providers, you have these suppliers providing this, you have aggregators and all these new words coming up. You should align this in a good way. So if you take the next one, you will see that this also gives the opportunity for new business models, like Octopus Energy, BYD, and Norwegian company Zaptec are joint offering, providing a car as a service with charger and charging included. This is in UK, but I'm so glad to say that this is a German opportunity too. So if you take the next one, this is the Neue class BMW, and E.ON will go together with BMW, offer a new business model for the car owner. And that's about how to earn money on your car. I'm really looking forward to this because this opens new opportunities, while it might also give the local grid operator new challenges though. So what will it take? If you take the next, it's a lot of things, right? Normally, we have been having the view that you should optimize the system based on the L-spot they had on the right-hand side, where everyone have the same incentive. Seeing that this will lead to, after a price is set, you start moving the consumption from the hours with high price to the hours with the lowest price. Then you introduce imbalance in both hours when you do this at scale. That will increase the imbalance cost, but it's going to be handled in the intraday market. So that's good. But if the amount of megawatt hours in those markets is increasing, the TSO need to start buying reserve markets in a higher amount of money. And those costs on the reserve markets from the TSO will come back to you as a consumer added on the network fee. So it's increasing the system cost if you're not good at balancing the system in total. And it will be a local problem to solve if you are following incentives on the centralized system that actually introduce problems on the local level. So that's why you have these incentives from the distribution system operator, focusing on dynamic network tariffs, that is going to give incentives to some sort of change your behavior from what's going to be the centralized value of the system to what's going to be needed to avoid those problems locally. And you also have the local flexibility markets. And in addition, you have this German 14a paragraph that is telling you that you might be limited on your power consumption from the DSO if needed. We see that what's really lacking in this is the opportunity to forecast when and where it's needed for the grid. It's not there yet. And even more, you need to make sure that you not start building parallel infrastructure to operate these EV chargers as the DSO shall operate the charger. It's much more, from our point of view at least, it's much more dedicated and better to just build on what's available on the smart charging APIs already implemented. And that's what we do in Norway. So we are not building a parallel infrastructure for the DSO. We are aiming for giving incentives to those aggregators or smart charging providers that is actually operating the EV charging with a grid-aware point of view. Yeah, that's basically what I want to say.
Thanks, Kjetil. Thank you for this kind of a preview of the future and some warnings at the same time. So let me now include Leon to have a look at the present situation. The smart meters are key. Leon, you recently said in one of the latest episodes of the German Geladen Batterie podcast, which I can recommend, that the situation looks pretty bad for smart meter adoption. Adoption is really slow, especially in Germany. Why is that, Leon?
So most countries have introduced smart meters many years ago. I don't think anyone in Italy remembers the time of having the old meters, and Germany has currently, depending on your count, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or 4% of households having electronic meters and the rest not. I think the underlying reason is that we've been trying to make this better and perfect and sort of find a German way for this. The reason being that not only do we want to install smart meters, but these meters shouldn't be only meters, but they should also be steering everything in the household. So they need to have a gateway and and additional sort of interfaces, technical interfaces to all the equipment, which makes them complicated. It makes privacy and data security and IT security paramount, much more important than if you just meter, and it makes the whole thing expensive. So if you include installation costs, there is no official cost, but roughly speaking, DSOs tell me that installing one smart meter with a gateway will cost you about 1,000 euros in Germany, which is just insane.
True. We have a look at this situation here. Smart meter control box sounds really like a showstopper, doesn't it? Together with a partner, we're currently on a use case that considers smart meter data management for all smart meters in Germany, and this amounts up to 60 million smart meters. It's a lot of data to digest, which also incurs costs for storage and processing. But if we extrapolate what you just said, we're talking about billions of euros just for the metering infrastructure. So the cost of software are peanuts compared to that. So we all hope for a pragmatic solution here. But now, if we now think of against all odds, let's assume that dynamic tariffs have been introduced. In a brand new study, your colleagues did a simulation on the potentials for savings for households in Germany. What was the setup of the study and what were the results, Leon?
So the electricity bill of households in countries such as Denmark or Germany comprises pretty much 3 big components: the cost of energy, the cost of using the grid, and then taxes and other things you pay to the government. And one important difference to the data that we saw for Norway is on a normal day in Norway, prices are pretty flat. And the reason is the abundance of hydroelectricity reserves that the country has, which most of Europe lacks. So prices are pretty volatile in Germany and many other parts. And that's not only on sunny days, that's also on a day like this that's very cloudy, because demand is high in the evening and in the morning, but very low at night. So prices fluctuate often by a few $100s every day. That means economically, it makes a huge difference if you charge your car in the evening when you get home, or if the car is optimized and charges in the middle of the night or the middle of the day, whenever electricity prices are lowest. And we've done a number of studies simulating optimal versus conventional charging behavior, and we figure out that roughly speaking, for an average consumer, you can expect to reduce your electricity bill for the car by 70 or 80%. That means you can save 3/4 of the electricity that you usually would pay to charge your car. So we're pretty close to free charging, if you want so. And that's only by optimizing the amount, sort of the time, smart charging, optimizing the time of when you charge. That does assume that grid operators have introduced dynamic network charges. So what's different from hour to hour is not only the price of electricity on the exchange, it's also the money that you pay for using the grid. And that's something that we sort of have in most European countries, and we struggle to introduce in Germany, but we are on a good way. And last week, the regulator announced they want this for everyone.
Sorry.
It can be better though. Let me just add this. If you're also allowed to use the car as a true battery, that means to feed back electricity to the grid, which is commonly described as vehicle to grid. I mean, the vehicle doesn't go to the grid, but the electricity leaves the battery and then is injected to the grid. But let's call it vehicle to grid. It's easily foreseeable that you can make money from the car. That means you earn more than you pay. It's not only free charging. You can actually get home with money by essentially selling your car as an energy service to the market. I very much agree that this is nothing that you would sort of do as an individual, but of course you would engage in a deal with an aggregator or supplier or with a car manufacturer, and maybe I can easily foresee in the long term that you get the car much cheaper if you just agree that for the lifetime of the car it can be optimized on electricity markets and can be used for balancing services and intraday trading and all the other fancy stuff, and create value.
Your study also included potential for heating pumps and even small home storages, but that's not so high, I gather.
Well, it always depends on how much you can do. The beauty of an EV is that, like an average EV commuter in Europe who doesn't travel US distances, needs to charge, even with just a standard 11 kilowatts charger, you would need to charge on average just 30 minutes per day. So you have a massive degree of freedom to just pick the half hour when you need to charge. You can essentially, usually most people have plugged the car in for 12 hours or so during the night, and you can just pick the cheapest half hour. And cheapest then means wholesale prices on the exchange are low and grid fees are low, and you optimize between those. For a heat pump, that's more difficult. If it's really cold, when there's Norwegian temperatures out there, and it's snowy, then the heat pump runs pretty much 24/7. That's how they're designed. But in the fall and in the spring, when it's not so cold, you can also shift heat load a little bit. But just the sort of degrees of freedom that you have to shift load is, for technical reasons, somewhat smaller, but the savings are still real. Just like you shouldn't expect to get free heating if you optimize your heat pump.
But you can expect free charging for the EV, actually.
That's already, actually, if you think about it, it's a pretty big deal. How much gasoline prices are on the top of head of people, and if once people understand an EV is not only emission free, it can also mean essentially not paying for gasoline and not paying for electricity either. I think that's a pretty big message to convey.
Yeah, true. Thank you. I think it's not just hardware, of course. Some of these challenges will also arise when processing the meter data. In some cases, you even need more than just one smart meter. So there's our technology to help you out. So let's have a brief call to action before we start with the Q&A session. Vera, please start our video. We have designed PowerTSM as a purpose-built platform for time series management in the energy sector. Introducing dynamic tariffs will present significant challenges for your data management, especially when it comes to meter data. Meter data must be recorded in real time. It must be validated to prevent misinterpretations. Dynamic tariffs require additional calculation processes, such as dynamic aggregations and resampling. These calculations take into account an array of additional data, including meteorology, power plant data, and exchange prices. Most of these are also available as time series. Are you experiencing similar requirements and need to process your data this way? Start the Proof of Value program with us to find out how our technology can help you in only a few days. Contact us at sales@hakom.at or via LinkedIn. Or, of course, right now, because it's time for our Q&A session. So, back to you, Stefan. Thank you, my digital twin. So now let's start with our Q&A session. Panelists are available for your questions. I've seen some already coming in. Well, maybe let me start with you, Kjetil. Do you know how many prosumers already use smart tariffs in Norway? Can you give us a rough estimate? You're still mute, Kjetil.
Yeah, that's a really fantastic question, because until October this year, 96% was on that sort of tariff. While suddenly the politicians have realized that people don't like the variations last winter. So now they have introduced a governmental fee. So that shall compensate for variations, basically, making sure that those who want to have a fixed dynamic, not dynamic, just fixed price for the electricity, they can get this government fee for that. But government refund. But it's still like they have the dynamic tariff though, but they get a refund if they commit to those. But it's part of the story that we are not having 96% in the same way anymore though. Did you get the answer? Because it's probably confusing.
Well, all good.
That's the oil fund making this an opportunity, right?
Maybe just another question where we need your experience. How often is it really not possible to charge an EV in Norway at a high voltage charger? So is this something that happens frequently, or just
Yeah, I think it's important to say that I think I can support what Line just said. It's not like very relevant to look to Norway in terms of what's the real problems in the grid, because we don't have these price variations in the normal day. And what we then see is that we are not having a lot of problems at all yet. But I also said that there is not focused at scale to have smart charging. So while more and more smart charging will be the way to do it, for instance, by these EVs from BMW with a bi-directional charging opportunity, that's going to be more challenging for also in Norway. That's my point.
Thank you. Now I need the magic ball for Leon. Does Leon's statement for free charging will work in the future with much higher shares of vehicle to grid?
So there's like always in the economy, there is sort of self-cannibalization, right? If you provide a service on large scale, you drive down the profit of that service. And that's true for anything in the world, but it's also true for power system flexibility. On the other hand, of course, the power system are getting more volatile by the day because we're adding more wind and solar, and we are electrifying in other parts, right? So imagine we're running the energy sector mostly on electricity and phasing out fossil fuels. That means we have a vastly higher peak load. We have much more solar capacity and much more wind capacity. All of this will drive up day ahead, but also intraday price volatility. So you have different forces at work here. And so in a sense, if EV is going to be too successful in doing what sort of being smart, then this will drive down the profit they're making from this a bit. But I'm rather confident that the volatility that we're going to get in the system is sufficient to keep a lot of EVs busy and profitable.
Thank you very much. Leon, do you have an estimate when smart meter rollout in Germany will catch up?
Smart meters in Germany, that's a pitiful and difficult question. So many people say we are finally there and now it's picking up. But again, as if it's true what DSOs tell me, that these smart meters, including gateways and control boxes and so on, and installation cost you €1,000 per meter, then means it doesn't make sense to install 40 million meters for all households and pay 40 billion euros, right? I mean, that's just way more money that you can ever recover from those. That means if the meter are so expensive and stay so expensive, only very large consumers should get them because only there the leverage is big enough, which means big residential houses with multiple cars and very large heating requirements. So no, I don't know. I fear it's going to take many more years, and it's not clear at all if we're going to go for universal very large shares of penetration at all. To get there, we would need to first be open for what's often called smart meter light. That means a meter that can meter and transmit information, but that's not there as a gateway to steer and manipulate the equipment.
Thank you.
I've also answered a few questions in the chat. If people can look at the chat, there's this answered tab. So what I can answer, I've typed in my few responses if people are interested.
That's super helpful because we have quite a number of questions. Another one that has not yet been touched is there a study of digital fitness of DSOs too? I think that goes into the direction. There's a lot of things that need to be done also at digitalization at DSOs. Have you heard about such studies or what needs to be invested still?
I'm not sure if there's a study, but I can report that anyone who works with DSOs has a bit of concern. We have many of those, both in Austria and Germany. We have hundreds. Germany has 900 different DSOs. So we need 900 different IT departments and operations departments to sort of catch up with that reality. And I'm trying to be diplomatic here. That's a bit of a long shot to expect to happen anytime soon. Hence, my hope is that we are moving towards a system where DSOs don't have to do anything. I think the vision that DSOs then sort of turn on and turn off and reduce the charging of individual EVs, that's just too much for them. I hope we're going to get dynamic grid fees, and then the optimization is done by someone else, be it the car manufacturer, be it the supplier, be it some aggregator. So it can be 1,5 Grad or Octopus or anyone else. It doesn't need to be the local distribution grid operator. I think the distribution grid operator should build the grid, but they shouldn't sort of try to be on top of 80 million residential home-based heat pumps and cars.
Okay, thank you. Kjetil, did you already observe changes in prices due to smart charging? You do the forecasting, so maybe you've seen that?
What we at least have seen is that there is a challenge while we see there is a change on focus from the aggregators that they want to actually use flexibility in the balancing markets instead of focusing on local flexibility services. And that leads to it's actually leading to incentives like it's not like very high price differences between the hours, so they can actually move the EV charging to the most expensive hours to be available for stop charging as a service. And they are to some extent increasing the problem by charging in not at all a grid-aware way. So that's an incentive that will probably be a short-term opportunity, but it's a gaps in the model as of today. And I think it's in general more focus on trading than it is on local grid optimization. While the spot price is of course not like driven by EVs. It's not like a high number of kilowatt hours. It's a high number of kilowatts, but not like very many kilowatt hours actually.
Okay. Another one, are dynamic grid fees more than day-night fees? Yes, they are. Kjetil, I think in Norway it's hourly dynamic. In Austria and Germany it's 15 minutes. So yes, it's a yes. And then that's also an interesting question. What country has the best dynamic grid fees? Well, I don't know if you can answer that. Maybe.
Yeah, what is the best?
Yes, what is the best?
I think it's important to see that if the grid fee are going to be effective, it should change the need for investments, for instance. And I've seen a problem, and this problem is that if you shall make it the difference big enough to make people really change behavior, it's going to be way too expensive at the same time. So, for instance, at Christmas Eve, if it's cold on Christmas Eve, that's the peak hour for local demand in Norway. While at Christmas Eve, you don't care about the cost, right?
True.
So that's a challenge, right? It's 20 euro extra at Christmas Eve. Oh, you don't bother, right? And then you have this problem even though. So that's why a DSO struggle with believing in this as what's going to solve the problem.
Okay. Thanks. Interesting idea. Norway has 5 price zones. Germany has only 1. Wouldn't it make even more sense in Germany to give consumers incentives that reflect the shortages in the grid on the TSO level? I don't really get that message, but I think Leon, you recently commented on the different grid fees in Germany, but that was on DSO level.
But sort of what the question suggests is absolutely right. It would perfectly make sense to reflect the constraints on the transmission grid in form of a number of different bidding zones. That would be sort of regional wholesale prices, very much like in Norway or Italy or Denmark or Sweden or many other places of the world. And then account for the congestion in the distribution grid at the medium and low voltage level through grid fees that are time of use. And the question of who has the best grid fee, that's a bit hard to answer, but I can point to one possible place to look at, and that's maybe unlikely to some listeners, that's Slovenia. Slovenia introduced grid fees that are very much economic in the sense that are designed to reflect the marginal cost of the grid. They are symmetric. So in one moment in time at one place, if you pay, I don't know, 10 cents for withdrawing electricity from the grid, you also get 10 cents for feeding something in, a kilowatt hour into the grid, which makes sense because electrically speaking, injection and withdrawal is just the same thing with a different sign, with an opposing sign. So that's a place to look at. And I'm not often speaking positively about German energy policy, but let me do this today. If you look at the proposed changes by the regulator that was published last week, if they really go ahead with this, which I doubt, but if they really do, and you ask me next year again who has the best grid fee, I might be inclined to say maybe look to Germany.
Okay, we'll invite you to the panel again and discuss.
There's a long way to go until we get there, but at least the direction of travel now seems to be right.
Okay. There's another one also about forecast methods with a high share of renewables and flexibility. How do you think will the price formation work? And are current forecast methods able to forecast such price curves? I've done forecasting for almost decades, and when you have structural changes, obviously it will be a challenge, but there are methods out there and algorithms that can deal with it. So I'm positive. What do you think? Will you agree? Okay, so we will handle that. Will there be challenge to improve the grid in Norway now? Do you see current challenges? I mean, specifically in Norway, or is it just?
In Norway, the challenge is, as of today, is at the TSO level.
Okay.
And that's about a reduced is n-1 the capacity if you get anything happening in the grid, right? So you increase the risk of an outage if something happens, and that's to be addressed by investments, while also in the short term incentives through tariffs and also by flexibility markets.
There was one question you wanted to answer in real time. How big are the largest pilots? I think we haven't had that yet.
Oh yeah, that's a good one because Actually, that's a problem for a technology provider like us, because DSOs not having the really big problem yet. They are learning. So they are on a learning journey. They see that they need to invest in the grid in 5 years. Then they see a alternative flexibility as the solution, right? But in 5 years, right? So they will need the flexibility in 5 years, while the pilot is right now. And start building the pilots. They start with 200 customers that shall have a smart tariff and whatever. And all the technology providers should jump into that, offering the opportunity for 200 customers, right? And it's not smart to do that, because you will lose a lot of money, basically. So I'm really eager to get much larger pilots. We have tried in Norway with something called the Euroflex project, that is some sort of different, or a lot of DSOs give you the opportunity to get some money back from flexibility, while it seems like this opportunity to be part of the balancing market overrule the incentives as of today in that model. So it's still a way to go.
Okay, thank you. Leon, do you think there's a risk of intransparency if consumers partner with a company that would handle the charging flows and payments? Do you think?
I think that's what people need to decide themselves. I mean, like how we are adults and we decide online which apps to use and what data to share and what to disclose. Same thing here. If you don't like a computer to know when your car is plugged in, then you probably shouldn't do this. I personally wouldn't care at all, but that's something that each and everyone has to decide for themselves.
Personal decision. Yep, yep. What about other use cases in addition to EV in Norway? Heat pumps, if flexible, also local battery storage. I know you have something to comment on, Kjetil.
Yeah, especially on this fast charging. This is really relevant with batteries. And in general, batteries will be very important going forward for the Norwegian grid also. So I think we have the same use cases as all the rest of Europe, basically. We
Okay,
don't have the rooftop solar at scale, though.
thank you. One last one for Leon. Could you elaborate on the proposed changes to the German grid fees?
I assume that refers not to my own ideas, but to what the regulator has published the other week that I mentioned. So what the regulator said is they want to introduce dynamic grid fees for pretty much everyone who can meter. That means all the big consumers that can meter now and all the small ones that have a smart meter eventually. And those should be reflecting the actual impact on the grid, so the congestion cost. So you would pay more if you cause more grid congestion, and you would pay less if you cause less, which means they need to be dynamic. They need to be different by location. They might be different even like within a city of Berlin. And they can be negative. So if you consume at time of high solar generation, when your local grid is overflown and network operators have to pay for curtailing solar farms, you will actually get money for withdrawing electricity from the grid. And those, so the network charge is effectively negative. Instead of paying to the grid operator is paying you, which comes on top of potentially negative wholesale prices on the power exchange. And that is, by standards of the German regulator, rather revolutionary.
Cool. Well, I think
I could elaborate a bit more on the question I asked about these use cases, because I think I didn't tell the story about these water heaters. Because in Norway we have this electric water heating, and we can't do that instantly because that would take too much. So that's why we are storing heated water, 200, 300 liters of heated water at home. And that's actually a battery.
True.
So we are able to be aware of when to reheat that water, and to do that as of today, most of them are start heating again after showering and directly, and that's in the morning and in the evening, right? So it's really not good for the system. So that's the most important use case actually for Norway, to make sure that this water heating is not happening in the peak hours.
Okay. Thank you. So I think we're pretty much done. Thank you very much. We are a bit over time already. So I'm afraid we need to finish our live session. Like last time, we will send out a short email right now with a link to a LinkedIn post where you can continue asking some questions. So let's stay in touch. So please join in. And I hope for a lively discussion there. So now let's finish our webinar. Have a great winter. Stay tuned to us and subscribe to our next webinar, which will be in April. Maybe also next year, with both of you again talking about latest changes in the regulations. Finally, do not forget, life is a time series. Bye.